Hey there everybody, this is Racer52 back with some more video on this cake pan conversion that we saw in segments 1, 2, and 3. I told you I was going to be back with a way of trying to clean up the bolts that are showing through on the bottom of the cake pan. In this particular application it's not all that bad because we have a head on the top and I have a head on the bottom. So your hands aren't getting in there, and that's pretty much out of sight. I can always spray paint the bottom of the cake pan black and just black it out, it won't be seen. But if your conversion is going to be the type where you're taking a drum shell and cutting it in half and just having a drum head on the top and the bottom of your shell is going to be open, well then when you do your conversion, your cake pan is going to go in and anything on the bottom is going to be seen from the bottom side of the drum. So to get rid of those bolts, I've come up with a way of mounting things inside that will fit and give isolation. So if we can come up with a product that finishes out like this, some benefits are, one, it's clean looking, and as people handle the drum, move it around and carry it, transport it, they're not going to accidentally bump or pull a wire out. As we saw in videos 1, 2, and 3, the jack went through the side of the shell and went through the side of the cake pan and came in, so all the wirings were inside the cake pan and nothing was exposed on the outside of the cake pan, except for the two bolts that we saw in the first drum in segments 1, 2, and 3. So what I've come up with the idea is to mount everything inside the shell using an adhesive bond. In this particular case I'm going to be using the 3M product. It's called Very High Bond Tape, packaged in this red card here. I found it at the hardware store. It's super heavy duty, super extra resistente, whatever all this wording means, but in any case it's very high bonding tape. It's a gray foam tape with red carrier that you remove and that exposes the glue. Very sticky stuff. I'm taking that tape and I'm applying it to some thin memory foam that I have laying around. Here we can see the black foam and then a layer of gray tape on the top and bottom, and that gray tape is this very high bond tape. Peeling this red off would expose the actual sticky stuff, and then when you bond this to something, once it cures up, it's got a really good hold. So here we see what the stuff looks like with the tape removed. That's sticky stuff there. So you clean your surface and then you apply this. Alright, so this is, I laid up some of this, then I cut it into some shapes to make little feet. And I'm going to bond inside of the drum. I found a platform at the hardware store. These are electrical switch cover plates without the little hole in it for a switch, like a light switch on the wall. There's a metal plate that comes with the little screws to attach to the fixture in the wall, and this is a cover so that for whatever electrical use it is, when there's an outlet box that's not being used, it can be covered. They make these out of plastic, but they also make them out of metal, and they have little countersunk screws. Well, I took the screws out, drilled the holes open a little bit, bought two of them. One is going to become my platform that's going to be glued to the shell inside on the cake pan, and the other is going to become the platform for my trigger. So what I did is I took the one, bought some 1-inch bolts with a countersunk head, and bolted them securely into the holes. I did have to drill the holes open a little bit larger. The original screws were somewhat smaller than what I'm using now. You can see that. So I drilled the holes open just to clearance this bolt to be able to fit through. Turns out I was going to use crush washers inside of there. I had a clearancing problem. I ended up taking the crush washers out. So I'm literally just the bolt and the nut and some glue inside there, some super glue, and tighten it down super tight because I want this bolt anchored securely as if it was were welded to this plate. So that's a permanent fixture to the plate now. I'm going to take this plate and we're going to glue it inside there. The way things are going to lay up, you need your rim trigger. That's going to be glued in here. This is all going to be just a demonstration as a dry fit. I'm not actually going to assemble it. But your trigger lays inside here. This trigger is going to be for the rim. It's going to be attached right there, peel and stick to the center of the cake pan. Centered up nice and evenly. Then I've made 2 of these foam tapes, and the idea is that I'm going to take those foam tapes, I'm going to tape them and attach it here, and this other recess is covering a recess for the head of the bolt that's protruding slightly so that there's no interference with the foam. If I didn't do that, this foam tape would buckle and not make good contact. So basically I'm putting foam tape in the 4 corners of this metal pad. Since I'm not actually applying it now, let me just lay them in here. So now I have the head trigger, or the rim trigger, in place, taped in place. Got my wires ready, got my connectors ready on there. You can see videos 1, 2, and 3 how that laid in there. Now this takes place of the nut certs I had in videos 1, 2, and 3. That very high bond tape is secured to the bottom of the cake pan. Be sure to put this trigger in before you apply the next platform. That's in, everything's taped in nice and sticky. You peel the red off of that. Now this gets bonded in. Boom. That's in there nice and solid and sticky. And it's not hitting the rim trigger. It's clearing it underneath there. That's all been measured and looked at a few times. Now the next thing I want to do is add my platform for the head trigger, but I want to have some adjustability. It turns out with the amount of tape that's in there and the thickness of the metals and all, that if I run my positioning nut down on here, I actually run it all the way to the bottom, and it's going to then come up just a little bit off of that, and that's going to give me the right height. Put my other positioning nut on. Or not. There we go. These can be run up and down to adjust the height of this platform here. Those holes were drilled out a little bit larger so that it just drops it nice and easily like that. Of course, everything is supposedly glued in tight now. Then I'm going to drop on a couple of lock washers and then top that off with another nut, which will tighten down and secure this platform at whatever height has been selected. So we have another nut that goes on here. So by doing this now, this top platform is now bolted to the bottom platform, which is glued with double-faced tape to the cake pan. Then your head trigger would be glued with double-faced tape onto there. In this particular application, with the nuts run all the way down, the head trigger is actually below the surface of the cake pan, and I can raise the adjusting nuts up to fit. So this now gives me an application where I've got everything installed inside the cake pan. When I flip the cake pan over, of course if I flip it over like this it all falls out. When I flip my cut in half drum, everything's clean on the bottom. So combining this concept with running the jack through the side of the cake pan, you end up with a drum shell that's very clean on the bottom. Nothing's going to get damaged by somebody handling it. Or if you have, say, a 12-inch drum and you're going to stack an 8-inch drum inside when you transport it, you can go ahead and stack it in there. It's not going to beat up any of the electronics. So I hope that helps. Next time you see a video, it's going to be this exact application that actually bolts together and installed on a drum.